Hello, spooky friends. Most people have never heard of The Other Sixth Sense, the 1970s show with Gary Collins. Those who have heard of it likely hate it, as they saw it chopped up into 30-minute Night Gallery episodes. So let's set the record straight.
Now read all of...
There are many sounds that bring us joy. The recess bell, a favorite song. This is one of my sounds of joy.
The movie of the week.
On October 2nd, 1971, the ABC movie of the week was Sweet, Sweet Rachel, a psychic mystery with an outstanding creep factor. Alex Dreyer plays Dr. Lucas Barrow, a professor of parapsychology at UCLA and an investigator of psychic matters. Just inside the door of his building, a plaque quotes Freud, "If I had my life to live over, I should devote myself to psychic research rather than psychoanalysis." It's a fake quote, from back when it was harder to look these things up. He has an interesting blind sidekick, Carrie Johnson, played by Chris Robinson, who can easily read minds and project to others. They're called in when Paul Stanton, played by Rod McCary, enthusiastically defenestrates himself when he sees a vision of his wife Rachel running through a cemetery, calling for him. The problem was that vision appeared in a large window overlooking a seaside cliff. Paul was playing an ESP game that night, and receptive to whatever vision might be aimed at him. Soon after his death, his widow, played by Stephanie Powers, starts seeing visions herself. The movie has the best art direction. There's a creepy deck of cards, a bust of Paul, and strange odds and ends throughout. It was a bit melodramatic for me, but hey, it was the 70s. The movie proved a big hit for ABC and became an unintentional pilot. It was intended to be a one-off, but because of the excellent reception, ABC scrambled to base a series off the movie. That series was The Sixth Sense. I don't know that a serious show on ESP would fly today, but you have to understand that in the 70s, a whole lot of people believed. Even I thought everyone had a little bit of psychic in them. I had a set of Zener cards and never missed an episode of The Amazing World of Kreskin. The 70s were soaked in telepathy and clairvoyance. It was a second coming of the spiritual movement of the late 19th century. It was in that atmosphere The Sixth Sense was created. In the new show, Alex Dreyer and his Dr. Barrow are replaced by Gary Collins as Dr. Michael Rhodes, because the network wanted someone the housewives could crush on. The phony quote inside the door is replaced with a Bible verse. "Your sons and daughters will prophesy, your old men will dream dreams, your young men will see visions." Joel 2:28. They didn't make this one up. The sidekick is gone, replaced by his secretary Nancy, played by Catherine Farrar. Sadly, she only lasts 7 episodes. It's a fun premise. Every week, Dr. Rhodes finds himself helping someone, usually a beautiful woman, to figure out whatever psychic thing is bothering her. It mostly involves murder. They definitely stick to the brief. There are no zombies or vampires. The show is solely about psychic phenomena. There are some ghosts, but those are explained as psychic emanations from the past, or a thought so powerful it reached through the centuries. It was reaching, all right. But hey, who's to say that isn't a better explanation for ghosties than the disembodied spirits of the dead being prats? They also cover a wide range of psychic phenomena. In the first elaborately titled episode, "I Do Not Belong to the Human World," we cover automatic writing. Belinda Montgomery is receiving messages from her brother, who died in Vietnam. She writes in Chinese characters, which her brother knew, but she does not. Clairvoyance, precognition, psychometry, and more show up throughout. The stunt casting begins right away, and I love it. Belinda Montgomery in the first episode. Leif Erikson and Jessica Walter are in the second. There are 2 episodes with former Miss America and current Mrs. Collins, Marianne Mobley. But they really get going on episode 6, Can a Dead Man Strike from the Grave? Yes, the titles are always like that. They seem to have a 5-word minimum. Anyway, this episode is a tiny Star Trek reunion, written by Gene Coon and starring William Shatner as a man slowly being possessed by events far in the past. He plays a piano in a trance and sees a murder he may be fated to reenact. The next episode gives you a little hint as to the guest star. Now, mind you, I always like to go into these blind, so I wasn't sure what was coming. A sword swings in the cold open, and the sound effect is that familiar power move twang from the $6 Million Man. I laughed out loud when I saw Lee Majors in the credits. This episode introduces Will Geer as Reverend Jordan, a blind priest who Rhodes consults twice more. Sadly, this is as close as he gets to an offsider. I hoped the secretary would develop into something, but she was gone quickly. Later in the series, we meet Lieutenant Woods, played by Percy Rodriguez, and he's a great character to play off of. But we only get him for 3 episodes. This is a major problem with the show. Michael Rhodes is a cardboard cutout. He's affable and helpful and always, always calm. The most we find out about him is that he got his nose broken playing football. At one point, they do the inevitable 70s thing of introducing a girlfriend and immediately killing her. He barely blinks an eye. He's more concerned with psychically finding the murderer. The character desperately needs a sidekick, someone to play off of through whom more is revealed about our hero. Just the small bit of interplay we got with Nancy the secretary for the first 7 episodes was looking good, but all chance for character development was quashed. I blame this guy. His name is Stanley Spetner, and the dude is a problem. The creators of the show are listed as Anthony Lawrence and Spetner, but after the first few episodes, all Lawrence did was pitch story ideas. Spetner had taken the reins. When the show was first in production, they had Harlan Ellison and D.C. Fontana on board as script supervisors, which explains the quality of the early episodes. They both quit in disgust before the show even aired. Dorothy explained, he didn't like children, he didn't like women, he didn't like men, he didn't like stories about sick people or emotionally ill people, he didn't like stories about poor people, he didn't like stories about ethnic people. Essentially, it came down to us doing stories about rich white people who didn't have any problems, and that was a problem for me. I left one day, and Harlan Ellison left either the day before or the day after me. It all happened in fast succession, I can tell you that much. It's too bad, because the potential for stories about extrasensory perception and abilities was great. Most of the show is rich white women seeing something scary, and some paternalistic boyfriend or family member telling her she's nuts and trying to keep Dr. Rhodes from making things worse. Though it is a consolation that the macho protectors are always proven wrong in the end, but things don't always go to formula, and that's when the show is at its best. In With Affection, Jack the Ripper, Patty Duke plays Elizabeth, a former student of Dr. Rhodes who's now doing her own research. She surrounds her subject, Adam, played by Robert Foxworth, with late 19th century items and has him play the harpsichord and tries to get him to connect with the 19th century. We'll just ignore that the harpsichord was largely an 18th century instrument. It sounds cool. Adam naturally connects with its most notorious killer, because what fun would it be to connect with its scullery maid? The Ripper gradually takes over Adam's personality, and the expected bad things happen. There are 3 episodes that don't even include Collins except in the introduction and a post-show interview. Instead, they pull stars so big that they didn't want to overshadow them with another lead. The first of these is Joan Crawford's last acting credit. Dear Joan, we're going to scare you to death. Joan, playing Joan, runs her caddy off the road, avoiding a dog, and goes to the nearest house for help. They welcome her warmly and offer to put her up until her car can be repaired. Unfortunately, they are a group of people experimenting with ESP for nefarious purposes, and they want to see if they can achieve the ultimate power, scaring someone to death with projected visions. Joan's daughter drowned some years ago, and they used this to start sending her over the edge. In Through a Flame Darkly, Collins hands over the reins to Sandra Dee, who plays Alice Martin, a woman receiving visions of an old school friend whose life is threatened. Somehow, her friend Beth has been mistaken for dead, and Alice must travel to the small town she's seen in her visions and find her friend and prevent her cremation. Finally, in If I Should Die Before I Wake, sweet, sweet Rachel Allam, Stephanie Powers, and Rod McCary are together again. There's also Dennis Dugan playing a non-annoying person for a change. But the star here is Jane Wyman, who has visions of a grave dug in the basement and her within it. It plays out as a whodunit, except they haven't done it yet. I don't think it's the lack of poor Gary Collins that makes these episodes great, but the chance it gave the writers to stretch a bit. When you have stars like these, you don't want to give them a bum script. Now that's not to say the rest of the show is trash. Within its limitations, there are plenty of good episodes, not to mention other reasons to recommend it. The show is full of amazing sets. The upside of always writing rich people is that we're shown the interiors of a whole lot of clearly haunted mansions. I wanted every banister and chandelier. I especially wanted every painting. The show is full of art. Jaroslav Gebr provided art for 10 episodes, including a gorgeous faux window for the eyes that wouldn't die. He provided more for the night gallery intros, but honestly, that work looks rushed compared to the paintings for the show. I am a sucker for paintings in television shows. I always want to know more about them and who made them. Gebr has a website, which I'll link in the description. There's art in the titles, too. The Season 1 opening was just a bit of music and voiceover with views of the Millikan Library at Caltech. Now for the second season, they handed the titles to Jack Cole, a wizard with still photography and overlays. The last bit of the titles is especially creepy, and was carried over by Gebr into a night gallery painting. That, paired with Billy Goldenberg's music, gives the new credits a Twilight Zone feel. The production is excellent all the way through, the effects were quite good for the day, and there were some great creepy sequences. They were also ambitious at times. Director Barry Shear was brought in on the second episode, and when he heard the script requirements, he said, "You're kidding." He describes them. "We have an earthquake sequence, a 40-foot fire, a huge spiderweb bit, one strangling, and a tidy little scene where a 500-pound griffin attacks a man. They shot it in 9 days with Collins doing his own stunts. I do think they made the griffin smaller." The Sixth Sense ran for 25 episodes, and the final show aired on December 23, 1972. But that wasn't the end. A big part of how studios make money is syndication. When a show meets its end, the studio will package it to be run daily, and they want enough shows to run a couple of months without repeats. Universal had The Sixth Sense and Night Gallery to package, but neither of them had enough episodes. Also, both shows were an hour long, and they wanted them to be 30 minutes for syndication. They decided the solution was to combine the two shows. For Night Gallery, it was bad. The show was done in segments, so to make a 30-minute show, some segments were edited down, and some had nonsensical stock footage added in. For The Sixth Sense, it was absolutely brutal. Instead of doing the logical thing and making the Sixth Sense episodes two-parters, they actually chopped an hour-long show down to 30 minutes. Serling was brought on to do intros that tried to fill in the gaps. He said, "I did the hosting for the new stuff, and some of what they gave me to say was incredible. People hated these episodes because they didn't make any sense. Characters would pop up without being introduced. Someone alive in a previous scene would suddenly be dead. They were impossible to follow, and that's why the show got a bad rep. It wasn't perfect, but it didn't deserve that." You can watch The Sixth Sense in its original format on the Internet Archive, and I've included a link. There are two versions, enhanced and regular. The enhanced version has a lot of artifacts from the process, so the regular version actually looks better. Special thanks to Nemsworld for his page of Sixth Sense Night Gallery paintings, to Pow for his great posts on the All Sci-Fi Forum, and an extra special thanks to John Kenneth Muir for his book Terror Television, which covers The Sixth Sense extensively. And thank you, spooky friends. I love you to death. Good night.